Being able to work out songs on the piano by ear is one of the most sought after skills that there is. But working something out can be easy or hard depending on what the song actually is. Most people think that modern pop music is pretty simple, whereas music from decades ago is pretty difficult. Well, today I'm going to put that to the test, working out one song by ear from every decade from the 1940s all the way up to the 2020s. So let's get into it. So first up is a song randomly generated from the 1940s, and I have Moonlight Serenade by Glenn Miller. So the first thing I'm trying to do when listening to this piece is work out both the melody and then the chords that are being used. The melody is quite straightforward, but the chords are much more difficult. The reason for that is because in a lot of older music, the chords are much more chromatic, which means they're moving by step, and that means that they don't necessarily conform to one scale. And as well as the chords being chromatic, they're not just straightforward triad chords. They're often chords that have got extra notes in them, and that's what gives it that kind of soft, warm, almost jazzy kind of quality that you get in these wartime songs. I'm also trying to work out exactly how I'm going to fit the melody into the chord sequence. A lot of the times if I'm working something out by ear and it's something that I don't know that well, I'll play the chord sequence by itself and I'll play the melody by itself just to make sure that I know what I'm supposed to be playing. And then it's just a case of working out how I'm going to put those together. I am going to play these in my own kind of style, and that's for three reasons. One, because it gives me a chance of getting around the copyright. Two, because these are piano covers, so it's worth playing them like a piano cover. And three, because it's more fun for me. Okay, next is the 50s, and we have a song by Jackie Wilson called Reet Petite. Now this song is interesting because it's essentially a 12-bar blues. So as soon as I hear it, I know what the chord sequence is going to be. It's going to be chords 1, 4, and 5 because those are the chords that are used in a 12-bar blues. So all I really need to do is work out the first chord and then I know all of the chords. But with something in this style of music that's played quite fast, trying to find a way of fitting that melody in while retaining the quality of the piano part is quite difficult. If I was singing it and could sing, then I would just play the piano part and it'd be much easier, but trying to add the melody in does add a layer of difficulty. That's not my favourite style to play in because it's quite hard to get all of the elements on the piano at the same time with the melody, but it kind of sounded like it. Okay, next up we have the 60s, and we have Help by the Beatles. The interesting thing about the Beatles is that they wrote music by just messing around with chords and finding sounds that they like. And in this particular song, there is a different scale is being used for the verse compared to the chorus. So if you work out what the scale is for the verse, it gets very confusing when you get to the chorus and it's not the same scale. But fortunately, because I'm listening to the bass line, I can hear that it's moving down by step, so the chords are not that challenging to work out. Okay, next up we have the 70s, and we have We Are the Champions by Queen. I actually, as a kid, was a massive fan of Queen, and I did once when I was 7 years old dress up as Brian May and play the piano as Brian May, even though he's a guitarist. And at the time I couldn't play the piano, which is even more bizarre. But I am pretty familiar with We Are the Champions, even though I don't know what the chords and notes are off the top of my head. But it makes it much easier when you know a song, because you're not so reliant on listening to it and remembering what you've just listened to. You can kind of rely on your memory. Now, something interesting about the opening of We Are the Champions is that you can hear that the bass notes stay the same while the chords change over the top of that bass note. It's always useful when you're trying to work something out by ear to listen to the bass note and what it's doing, because that will tell you a lot about the chords that are being used and probably what the melody notes are, because the melody notes are usually around the chord notes. And the melody for We Are the Champions is pretty simple as well. It's mostly moving by step, so if you hear a note and you hear it goes up one, you can kind of work out what that is. Okay, next up we have Holding Out for a Hero from Footloose. I think it's Bonnie Tyler. Holding Out for a Hero is another song that I know, and it's also another song that has a bass line that's moving down by step at a time. The first chord that you hear in a song is most of the time chord 1 in the scale. So if you hear an A minor chord, like in this case, then it's probably going to be an A minor scale. This makes working out the rest of the chords and the steps that that bass note is moving down pretty easy to work out. And once again, this song has a melody where the notes aren't moving around that much. It kind of stays in the same place. So once you've found the area of the piano where the melody is, you're usually, for the most part, only moving up or down a note. Half of the battle with working songs out by ear is not actually working out the notes. It's working out the style and how you want to play it on the piano. That one was definitely more straightforward. Okay, next up we have the 90s, and we have She's the One by Robbie Williams.
It's been a year of smiles for this British president.
Now, She's the One actually is played on the piano in the original song. So that means for the most part, I'm not trying to condense loads of instruments into various parts on the piano. I just have to listen to what the piano's playing and where those chords are, and then reproduce it. This takes a lot less time than trying to arrange a piece of music for the piano so that it sounds nice. So I think this one is pretty much the quickest one to work out. That was another one that was fairly straightforward. Now we're into the 2000s, and we have Can't Get You Out of My Head by Kylie Minogue. Can't Get You Out of My Head is an interesting song because of the rhythm. You've got this kind of alternating pattern that is happening in the music. The problem that I personally have with any songs that are particularly rhythmic is that adds an extra element you've got to think about when trying to play it on the piano. You've got the rhythm, you've got the chords, and you've got the melody. And obviously, you've only got two hands. So you then have to play the rhythm as part of the chords, which makes playing the melody much more challenging. Next up, we have the 2010s, and we have Sam Smith, I'm Not the Only One. Now for the Sam Smith song, now we're getting into the realm where I am pretty familiar with the songs, and it only feels like a couple of years ago that the song came out. This song, similar to the Robbie Williams song, is written for the piano as well. So once again, other than adding the melody in, I'm just trying to reproduce the song on the piano. The chords for this are F, A major, D minor, and B flat major, which means that the first chord has a C in it, the second chord has a C sharp in it, and the third chord has a D in it. And you can hear the chromatic movement of notes coming one after another. Hearing things like that in a piece of music make it much more easy to hear because we can naturally hear stepwise motion much more clear than jumps. Okay, next up we have the 2020s, and we have APT by Rose and Bruno Mars. Now APT, although I'm very familiar with it because it came out this year, a lot of the verse and the opening of this song doesn't really have any notes. It's just kind of more spoken. So to play it on the piano and make it sound good, I'm going to have to try and do something slightly more interesting with it, so it's not just playing a single note over and over again. Fortunately, when it gets to the chorus section, it does have chords, and they are pretty clear chords. Because this song has come out in the last 20 years, it's always likely to just use 4 chords, and those 4 chords be the most obvious ones that are in the scale that the song is using. So that is one song from every decade from the 1940s up until the 2020s, worked out by ear. Some of those were definitely better than others. And I do think around the 60s, the chords became a lot more simple, and around the 90s, they became very formulaic, so like 4 chord sequences going round and round in circles. Another type of music that doesn't sound simple but is very formulaic is cinematic music. And if you want to learn how to make your playing sound cinematic, then head on through and I will see you there.